So I'm going to finish by talking for a few minutes about what scholars call subjective and objective identity, what I call talking the talk and walking the walk. As Alex Sardar mentioned, I edit a journal, I founded and edited a journal called Diaspora, and in its pages there was once a debate between an Armenian sociologist, Annie Bakalyan, who has written the one really good book about Armenian identity in America, but she believes it's a symbolic identity, I can explain that, and between her and Susan Patty, an Armenian anthropologist. And what was their argument about? The argument was the following. Annie Bakalyan, as a sociologist who had done social science research on Armenian identity, said the vast majority of Armenians are nostalgic ethnics with only symbolic identity. They're like the Irish. You know how the Irish, it's St. Patrick's Day, the beer is green, they parade, then they go back. They claim an identity, but that identity has no effective, active presence in their daily life. So in a certain language, they talk the talk of Irishness, they have a symbol of Irishness, St. Patrick's Day, a shamrock, whatever. But in their lives, they don't walk the walk. They are not required to do Irish things. In northeastern United States, in the Boston area, during the time of the IRA bombings, there were secret Irish organizations that collected money for the IRA. But they were very much the exception to the rule. And of course, the US arrested them when they found this out. The question of walking the walk is a very difficult one for the following reason. Susan Patty, the anthropologist, said, you know, being an Armenian doesn't exactly convey a whole lot of privileges upon you. So when someone says, I am Armenian, I subjectively declare that I am Armenian, I talk the talk, how do you get off saying, no, you're not, or yeah, you're just, you know, you have a symbolic identity. You don't really have a real identity. That requires you to walk the walk. That requires you to show in one of the 1,000 possible ways that you're attached to the Armenian people in some way, as yet unspelled. That debate about subjective and objective claims to identity has repeated itself for generations. My father, who was himself a very active man in Armenian life, would say about certain people, Ayo hayen, it's bluff hayen. Bluff in Armenian is the word for bluffing, as in poker or blot. He meant simply, you know, sure, I know that they're born of Armenian parents and say they are, but to him, he was at ARF Tashnaq Tsagan all his life, you had to put something on the line. Your money, to start with, your effort, something. And this is a debate that's not simply, of course, among us. The question of, is identity something that can simply be claimed by saying, I am, or does identity have to be acted out, have to be performed, not only on the stage of life, but performed at some cost to yourself? Whether it's labor, time, money. Karl Marx once said that all you have is the time of your life. When you work, you're selling the time of your life to your employer. You're selling the energy of your life to your employer. When you take the little money that you have as a panvor, as a worker, and you give it to an Armenian organization, as so many did in their small donations, you are giving your life. It's very useful to remember that aspect of Marx. Next time you give $100 to something, I don't want to discourage you from doing it, just stop and say, wait, how long did I work for that? Could be 10 minutes if you're a cardiologist, and it could be 5 hours if you're not. You're giving your life. And for many people, identity is only demonstrable if you do that. Each of you has to ask to yourselves whether, in fact, you believe you have an Armenian identity, whether you have that identity because you say it. Do you do more than that? Do you perform your identity publicly? Do you say in conversations with other people, it's not okay for you to say that. I'm Armenian and this is how I feel about what's happening in Turkey or somewhere else. That's starting to put yourself on the line, all the way down to what else are you willing to do? How much are you willing to walk the walk? Finally, the question is there a legitimate authority anywhere that assigns identity? That's a very hard question. A lot of the identity that my students display, they're still young, is identity that doesn't come from their parents, from their teachers, from their priests, from any of those things. It's something they cobble together, they put together from the media to which they are so totally attached. Okay, I'll be done in 1 minute. One of the things that has happened that the digital world, the transnational and global world has done, is that the authority to be something comes to the young to a remarkable degree, not from the usual sources that validate individual identity. It comes from the performance in the media. A relative of mine told me one day that she wanted to learn Japanese. She was 14. I said, why? She said, because I love Little Tokyo. I said, what do you know about Little Tokyo? Turned out there was a group called Little Tokyo that she'd found online, fallen in love with, and just focused all of her interest to that, to learn Japanese, to become connected to that. To me, it's because I grew up before that, it's amazing to what degree the authority that says to you, this is the identity that you want, now comes from the media. So those two elements I'll leave you with, or three elements. One, the possibilities of identity are larger in number and can be self-authored more than ever before. They still have a cost. There's no such thing as abandoning one identity and claiming another without cost in time, in money, in energy, and more dangerous things in certain places. And I hope that, especially those of you who have the good fortune to be young at this time, you're able to reject the way in which your communities sometimes will tell you that you shouldn't try out being an Armenian in that way. I have heard people say to me, one person said to me, you're not a full-time Armenian, you're a part-time Armenian. And I thought, really? You know a lot of full-time Armenians? Of course I'm a part-time. I live in a town of 45,000. There are 2 Armenians in it. The other one, the only way he's Armenian is his last name is Kalajan, fourth generation Armenian American. Of course I'm a part-time Armenian. Don't worry about being a part-time Armenian. Don't worry about being a hybrid Armenian. Just choose your script to the degree that you can choose it, to the degree that your family, your friends, your circle, and act it out. The worst thing is not to engage, not to participate, not to author your own individual identity at a time when more than ever that is possible. Thank you.